Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Pig Health Today, and with me is Justin Ransom. He is a customer-focused supply chain strategist and formerly with McDonald's. Justin, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Now, I understand that you also have an agricultural background. You spent some time on a Texas farm.
I grew up in production ag, running cattle on wheat pasture, and that was what I grew up with and really fostered my passion for where food comes from.
So, Justin, you've been in the supply chain for a long time. What kind of changes have you seen as far as the supply chain's role in meeting producer expectations and needs, and also the needs of consumers?
The supply chain traditionally really focused on everybody doing their own part. So producers are trying to grow animals as fast as they can to get them to market as fast as they can with the least amount of cost to do it. That's how they run their business. The packers or the processors, they're really trying to be good at what they do. And then they've been selling it to consumers. But the way everything has changed is the consumer has so much of a stronger role in the supply chain of the future than what it had in the past. And they can ask for specific things, and because everybody gives them what they want, whether it's cars or clothes or whatever it is, they expect the same thing in their food. The food they put in their bodies, they think they should have it the way they want it. And certainly supply chain, we're trying to do our part in meeting that evolving expectation.
And I know you've referred to this in presentations as the age of the customer.
Right.
Is that the reason?
Right, exactly. It's really about companies that are doing a great job of listening to their customers and doing what their customers ask them to do. They grow their business. And quite frankly, we're all in this to grow our business, our part of the market. And being able to have the right insights of what do we think the consumer wants versus what do they really want, and how do we move our business to be able to meet that need is critically important.
But in any business, you also have to manage your customers' expectations. How does a supply chain do it? How should producers be doing it?
Well, I think it's a dialogue and engagement and understanding what is the real issue. What are we trying to achieve? And I think a lot of times, because people are so removed from agriculture, they don't know where their food comes from. So even having a conversation is difficult. And so trying to keep it simple and trying to be able to say what we are doing and how we continue to improve year over year in raising healthy pigs, that's really what we should be talking about.
And what about animal welfare? I mean, that's generally a topic that everybody can agree on. We all love animals. We all want to make sure that they get good care. But consumers don't always have a good understanding of what that means on the farm.
Well, animal welfare is a huge topic. I mean, it stretches from pig health to the housing system we raise them in, and everything, transportation, everything in between. And it's really about taking a holistic approach to what's the right thing for the animals. As scientists, oftentimes we really focus on the technical, the data, the information that we glean from research. And we fail to communicate to consumers the emotional side of animal welfare. And that's where the disconnect is. And so if we could talk about, when we're talking about animal welfare and we're talking with consumers about animal welfare, really trying to tie it together to get both the facts as well as the emotional connection in order for people to understand the conversation.
What do veterinarians in the pork industry need to understand about the new dynamics between the supply chain and consumers and also the suppliers?
You know, I've spent a lot of time with veterinarians and have great respect for them. And you know, they view their role of how can we keep pigs healthy? How can we help the supply chain grow animals faster, better, bigger? They get the animal. They understand that part. Whenever you tie the consumer in, just like me, sometimes you think, it's my job to protect the animal, don't worry about it. Yeah. But trying to connect with the consumer to let them know, listen, we hear you. We hear what you want. We're doing those things. And it's important that we have the appropriate level of engagement that people believe us and trust us. And I think there's the disconnect, and that's something that certainly we've got to work on.
Can you give me an example?
Whether it's antibiotics, people see antibiotics and want antibiotic-free everything, and I understand that. No one wants antibiotics in their food, right? But to not treat an animal because it's sick isn't the right or proper animal welfare. And so being able to use preventive pharmaceuticals is important to sustain that healthy barn environment. It's a challenge that's up for debate, and I think it's important that we work together to find the right solutions.
In the food service industry, you have some marketers that are going to be more opportunistic than others. Without getting into names and so forth, we know that some have had some not so nice things to say about agriculture, and then other companies have said, well, animal welfare is a big component of this, so we're going to allow some level of antibiotic use. Where do you see the food chain going right now with this antibiotic story? Because like in poultry, for example, we've got a lot of places promoting antibiotic-free.
Right.
It seems like it's a good marketing opportunity, and if they can use it to grow their business, fine. But then we don't want to throw the rest of the industry under the bus either.
Right.
So how does can the food chain play a role in kind of being a mediator there?
I think so, totally. I mean, really it's about stewardship, right? And, whether it's a global organization that's looking at stewardship or whether it's a local farmer that has one set of pigs, one set of sows that he's taken to the local market. Those don't exist that much, but everybody has a role in stewardship. And there's opportunities to prevent the need to use pharmaceuticals, and what are they? How can we, it's genetics, it's nutrition, it's pharmaceuticals, it's everything all together, and we've got to figure out, we can't just work on one problem. We can't just work on pharmaceuticals and hope everything solves itself. It's got to be in unison, and it's a really complex problem. How do we, across the board, how do we decide what the future of pork production is going to look like? There's a lot of hot button issues out there, whether it's group house sows or painful procedures on pigs. How do we bring this together to say this is what the future of pork production is going to be, and this is why it's the right thing to do for the pigs? So many times we get wrapped up in what we think as consumers is the right thing for us, and don't really focus on the right thing for the pigs, and it's obviously challenging to make decisions in that environment.
You talked about painful procedures. Some people have criticized the castration of pigs. There is technology out there now where you can actually give male pigs a series of injections so that you do not have to castrate them. But one of the big roadblocks, as I understand it, is that the food industry or the packers just aren't willing to process intact male pigs.
Right.
What do you do about that?
Well, here's the situation. People have got to sit down and come up with what is the right thing to do for the pig, right? We know that immunocastration is the right thing on an animal welfare perspective. They've seen some positive results in a reduced need for antimicrobial use or antibiotic use in baby pigs going into the supply chain. We stress them when they're at a young age, at a critical point in their life. We stress them. And how can we take those stresses away and make healthier baby pigs? And the dilemma is how we talk with consumers about that. Do consumers really care? Do they really want to talk about this subject? I don't think that they do. I think the concern is what happens if we're doing something and they find out about it and they don't like it. Does everybody stop eating pork? No, that can't happen, right? It's really about how do we tell a story about pig production and make people feel good about it, help people feel good about it.
Social media is obviously taken consumers by storm, but the pork industry has embraced it as well. What advice do you have for independent pork producers as far as using social media to tell their story?
I think transparency is so critical to the entire ability to connect with consumers. When you're transparent, people start to trust you. They start to engage and have meaningful conversations. You see a commercial and you don't connect with it, but whenever you see a farmer that's out there doing the work day in and day out to raise healthy pigs, to get to America's table, that is what is good stuff. And that's what we should be focused on and talking about, rather than we have the opportunity to get sidetracked in some of the social or political issues of raising pigs and animals for meat.